I believe I'm live. I'm just trying to get the setup all up on my other screen so I can see what you're seeing, because what I see through my phone is definitely not what it shows, which is unfortunate. It means like zero prep. How is everyone? Because I can see some of you are here already. Oh, welcome, welcome. It's been a while since I've been around, right? Other than a YouTube short. Here we go. It's actually going to bring it up on my screen in 2 seconds. I have the chat up on a spare screen, just if anyone's wondering. And because it let me, basically, I've also added a little poll, which, to be fair, you may very well not answer it until we're a little further into the live. Right, I can actually see what I'm dealing with now, so that's good, and the lighting looks okay. But yeah, let me know, how are you? What have you been up to? Do you have this deck? Have you pre-ordered it? Are you excited about it? I haven't even looked at it yet, so I can't imagine that that's very dicey with this particular deck, and the reason being is, as you can see here, I've actually got 2 𝗵𝘁𝗍 tarot decks, so that's the branding that they go under, and then you've got Stephanie, who is the creator and I guess the main conceiver of the tarot, and then you've got Adam, who does the stunning artwork. So here I've got the 𝗤𝗿𝘁𝗺𝗃 tarot, the very first one that came out, which is why my box looks a little bit different to everyone else's. Sorry, my phone is vibrating, I shall move it. And then here I've got the, I never remember the name of this. It's their only oracle deck. Is it Heartwood? Or no, that's what this tarot is called. Well, there you go. Hey Jodie. This is an English creator, so this is an indie deck in your price range, my dear. Not that I am trying to encourage or enable you whatsoever. Hello, 𝗵𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗂, welcome, welcome. So you can see I genuinely haven't looked at this, and fortunately I haven't had to hide my address either, because it was in a recyclable like bag over the top of that, so that's all I've removed, and then I've tried to slit the sides. On slitting the sides I realised I still need to peel this off. You don't need any enabling, you do it by yourself. That's fair then, I won't feel too guilty. As you can see, they come with these cute little stickers as well, and this features the mouse, which is, I guess, the dominant character in this. Now, I know a bunch of folks online, 𝗂𝗍𝗿𝗄 comes to mind in particular, perhaps Krista of Krista Chronicles. I'm trying to think of anyone else who might have had it. I believe at least those two had an early copy of this, so a prototype. And to be honest, I sort of listened to their videos without watching too much of it, because I didn't want to see too much of the artwork, which is unusual for me. So let's get into it. If you're waiting for your pre-order package and you don't want spoilers, then you're maybe going to want to do one of 2 things. Either have a little break and come back, silence and not watch, or if it's just the visual, then do what I do and listen but look away. So it's been hectic. I'm not going to bore you with all of the things or the reasons why. The burnout has been very, very real. Oh, the box colour, and it's embossed again like the oracle, which, if anyone on here can remember the name of the oracle, please tell me, because I've absolutely forgotten. They're very up on recyclable materials, by the 𝗵𝘁𝗍𝗁𝗂 tarot, which is something that, including the deck materials, the ink, things like that, so I really appreciate that. But yeah, you'll notice that I haven't been around again on YouTube for a while, so I figured that whilst I'm not a massive unboxer, not that there's anything wrong with that, I just tend towards reviewing. It's I guess more of a taste and preference thing, but I've been changing things up a little bit and just jumping on in between writing up a bunch of Patreon content seemed like a fun and good idea. So we get, because it's a pre-order, like a little pack that comes with it of extras, and that's the bit that you may or may not want to see. So here we have a sticker. This is giving me, I don't know actually, maybe it is just a sticker of them. There's a little, I guess because it's a circle, I was thinking of the World card originally, but then it's giving me Hermit vibes, and then I'm just going off on a tangent. So I'll have to see if it's actually in the deck. Here's a little thank you card. Let me check the back. Yeah, I'm very mindful of, like, people have started using QR codes a lot for certain access and things to parts of their deck. So I'm kind of keen not to accidentally give stuff away on lives. Because I have to edit myself out, like, of doing things like that on recorded videos. So I'm opening the packet first. Hey Marlena, welcome, welcome. You're lurking while working. You accidentally answered the poll because it popped up. That's okay. You're just baiting everyone into saying yes. You can give us your honest answer after if you want. Thistledown, thank you Jodie for going on the website and checking for me. Thistledown is the oracle, so we'll have a look at it with the oracles and stuff at the end. We have a bunch of stickers with this one, which I'm very happy about because I can't really do a lot of artsy-fartsy stuff, but sticking things on stuff is just incredibly accessible. So we've got a I want to say hare, but maybe not, rabbit. Sorry, I don't know how to stop my phone from vibrating. Let's have a different go. There we go, that should do it. I've put it on sleep. I've put it on sleep, so if anything happens to the one I'm recording on, please tell me. Oh, look. How precious are these? It almost for a second gave me a hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil vibe. I'm not sure how you would do it between the three of them, but oh, you couldn't hear it vibing anyway. That's good, because otherwise it was going off quite a bit. It just sounds like I've got a random vibrator in the background. So I can't remember the difference. There's a name for these stickers, right? The ones that are cut out in shapes and then the round ones, but this is a little knight, clearly adorable. And this one's looking through a mirror, which the mirror concept's really interesting to me because I've seen it done in a few cards, but in different ways. And so some of my favourite mirror cards are completely different archetypes. There is a mirror card, I'm sure it says something like mirror or something like that, in the Heartwood Tarot, and that's actually the Hanged Man, if I'm remembering correctly. And then I've seen the mirror used in more of like a self-love, courage, acceptance, reflection of true self capacity on strength cards, which is again a really interesting way of looking at it, and I like both. And then here we've got another little mousey. Look, with a little button. And so the general vibe of this deck, for those who aren't familiar, is sort of like going through an abandoned, it gives me a little bit of like antiquated vibes, and animals have, and the plants have basically reclaimed this house, which I love the idea of, and I'm really curious to see how I feel about it in contrast to the 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 pattern. I believe the cut out shapes are called die cut. That sounds very familiar actually. So here, this is one of the death cards, but I think that there's a couple. And I am number 1746. I always get really high numbers. And I don't know whether they put random numbers in. I'm sure Stephanie has told us before, to be fair. Or whether it's reflective of when I ordered, and I am terrible. I always jump in last minute for the pre-orders. This, I'm just going to read it off in case. Oh, okay. Shall we read this? Let's see how well I can read on camera, because I'm massively out of practice. Dear friend, nestled within the cosy corners of this old cottage that we affectionately call Heartwood, mysteries are afoot. And just like the creatures hiding in the darkest shadows, these mysteries eagerly await your discovery. Though you may occasionally hear eerie sounds floating in the distance, the creatures living within these walls are just a bit curious about you. You see, it's been ages since anyone has wandered through their home, tucked deep within the forest, so they may stir with curiosity, eager to catch a glimpse of someone new. It's important to keep your eyes open as you move from room to room, but don't be afraid. Although this cottage can feel like the loneliest of places, this couldn't be further from the truth. There are signs of magic all around you. You just need to know where to look. So what are you waiting for? It's time to move boldly into the unknown and begin your new adventure. Trust yourself and embrace uncertainty, because who knows what could be waiting around the corner. Warmly, Heartwood. That's super cute. Also, I managed to read it okay. No lisping. Oh, look at the little birdie. I love jumping spiders, which I'm assuming this is. I really don't want to rip it. How precious can I be about this, though, without boring everyone? I'm not generally worried. This is interesting. Instructions. Feeling stuck and uncertain about what's ahead, wondering what path to take, simply flip over and scratch the foil seal to reveal a simple yes or no answer. How cool is that? That's my kind of gimmick right there. That's awesome. And then, okay, these three are pictures. I managed to undo this, by the way, which I'm very happy about. I don't know why I'm being precious about the sticker, but I'll be honest. Normally, I don't keep the finicky bits for decks necessarily, but the ones that I got with the other two, I have packaged up in a little box in here somewhere. So, so we've got home, and this is about the fall. And then I don't want to read all of them and like completely spoil the experience. Oh, it says it's talking about the Fool still, I guess, because they're the main character, right? Unease. And then this one, this feels very hopeful kind of vibe. Discovery. That's really cute. Off-topic question, where did you get your furs from? I will send you the link. She is a woman in Glastonbury, and she doesn't have them very often because instead of being furs from the legally killed hares and rabbits across the UK, because unfortunately legal culling is quite big with various animals over here, these are from random roadkills over time, and so you can imagine like finding a full decent fur without too much issues when that happens is quite infrequent. But I'll send you her information because I genuinely trust her. I've asked her a lot of questions. I know about her sourcing and her foraging and stuff, so I'll send you some information. Let me just grab a few more of what you're saying whilst I'm opening this. The line about magic all around you instantly started Rooms of Fire by Stevie Nicks playing in your head. Oh, I love that. Marlena says, Spider has been all around me today and I was precious about them. One on your car door and one on the door of your office. Ah, bless. They've come to find you. This is tripping my eyes out. This really reminds me of the experience I get visually from looking at the back of the Wild Unknown decks. Specifically the first edition of the tarot, the indie, is like got the trippiest backs and my eyes can't focus when they look at it. This is a note from the creator. Enclosed is a sneak peek of our next tarot deck, the Winding, where a spider will be our fool. I understand. Hello, yes please. Where a spider will be our fool. See, I'm being very mindful not to kind of collect them all. I don't have the dragon one, not that I'm opposed to it. Like, if someone said, here, have the dragon one. But I am trying not to do a collect them all thing. But in the same vein, I freaking love spiders. And I feel like the chances of them being represented in decks is very minimal. So this excites me. And then there's a little story about it. And so here is a little Spidey. Look. Proudly presents the Winding, coming soon. I wonder if it's going to be black and white, or if this, as it's like a concept piece, is, you know, simply the concept piece. I'd be really curious. Now, I'm really fussy about black and white decks, but Adam's artwork and the way that this is sketched and what I'm seeing like right now in front of me is making me be like, yes, if this was black and white, I would still be all over it. I think that that's quite a fun and thoughtful little package, and I'm wondering what other people think about it. One of the previous ones, I think it was the Oracle, came with a little mirror with one of the things printed on it and a little, I say little, but it wasn't like the normal size badges. It was a larger size badge. And whilst they're very beautiful and I have them, they're not necessarily things that I would use. I kept the mirror because I thought I could use it in some magical workings, but I do actually have a mirror for that anyway, so it's just kind of a secondary one. So I'm enjoying what came with it today. Fussy with black and white decks, but I love that spider card. Wasn't it gorgeous? It was beautiful. So here we have the box. The box is very, very similar to basically how they roll with things. So this is the Oracle deck, which Jodie did tell me the name of. And I've already forgotten it. Oh, it's on the back, for God's sake. Well, there you go. So this is volume 5, and the way that they do their volumes is each deck is a volume. However, there was technically 2 volumes of the first. So I think that's volume 1 and 2, Dragons is 3, Thistledown is 4, therefore Heartwood is 5. And it tells you about what I was saying about them being like, I'll use their word, a very responsible sort of sorcerer and printer. So generation press using carbon neutral, solar power, vegetable based inks. It is something that I'm more mindful of, especially having like a larger collection. One thing I will say is this weighs, it's a weighty baby. It's a weighty baby. Not that we're going to shame it for being heavy, but I really appreciate their cardstock. And one thing I will say up front is that having supported a fair amount of UK created decks from the simple passion that we're such a smaller pool. I don't even think that I pronounced that correctly. We're such a smaller pool in terms of the size of country and everything like that. Our indie market's very small. It's hard to get a hold of decks overseas without it costing a fortune, aside from some of our lovely indie sellers. So you've got the 𝗺𝗁𝗃, you've got Little Red Tarot. But I really don't want to lose all of our UK creators, and they seem to struggle more, in my humble opinion, than, say, the US creators. So I try and support them, but I have to say a lot of the cardstock that people print on in the UK, in my experience, has not been desirable at all. In terms of, it doesn't feel like cardstock to me. It doesn't feel like it could handle bending. It's just too rigid, and yeah, these, they feel a lot better. Okay, so they're, is this the front? This is borderless, by the way, just before we turn it over and get into it. I am quite glad. I like bordered decks, but I'm going to be really ridiculous and say that because this is off center, the border, things like that, it's so ridiculous, but it drives me a little bit twitchy. which is honestly an awful personality trait I've had for forever. I notice any tiny discrepancies. I would be a great quality control person, and this isn't a quality control issue, but I'm just saying. I am, yeah, just awfully anal with it. I don't enjoy it, but it's how my eyes are trained. So I'm glad that it's not like it on the fronts. Not a problem I have with the 𝗤𝗂𝗃𝗃. So, but this is the backs of them, and they also do this glorious thing where you get the blank card, which totally protects the deck. These are very common if you're not familiar with their creations, and you get a PDF copy that's sent to your email of the guidebook, which of course you could print out if you wanted to, and then you get these little keyword cards that you can basically access for sort of a jumping off point. I have never really paid that much attention to them, so I'd like to look at the two between the tarot and see if they say the same things or not, just out of sheer curiosity. So this is a chunky baby. So we've got another protective card at the front. I know some people might say that's wasteful, but in my world it's just glorious, because honestly the amount of decks that I've had that have turned up really like crushed to bits around the corner because of how they were packaged or how they were treated in transit, and time again these are just perfection. So, and we have another little title card here, so you can see they were massively protected front and back, and then we get into the cards. But it is a chunky baby. Do I have something I can compare it to very quickly? Because I feel like whilst I don't normally do that, it may just be of mild interest to you. I'll get my Witch Sister Tarot, bearing in mind that this is like plush indie deck quality, and what I'm about to get is a mass market deck. So, move the pixelings out the way. I also think because there's a few duplicates of cards, it may get a little thinner, but their 𝗤𝗂𝗃𝗃 is a chunky bubba as well. So that's it next to a Llewellyn deck, traditional card size, just a little thicker in the booty. There we go. So let's move that out of the way before chaos ensues everywhere. And I couldn't find a mouse because I don't have one, but if anyone doesn't know, one of my mini collections, which if I could have jumped in on the collection tag that's going around with these, I totally would have, but I'm not sure I could find a deck for all of them. But I like I can't remember if both brands are German, and I can't pronounce this one. It begins with an 𝗪𝗁𝗍, I believe. They're quite a well-known brand actually, but I wanted these animal toys when I was a kid and we couldn't afford them, and now I get these and another one that begins with a P just occasionally. I don't have a mouse one currently. Oh, am I going to bring these into frame? So I've got my deer family overseeing this because I was like, maybe there'll be deers in it, I don't know. And if anyone's wondering what this is, because again it's sort of like just off in the distance, it's my very awesome eagle friend. So yeah, let's get into this. Are we close enough, people? Can you see the imagery well enough? Do you need me to zoom in, or is it okay? Here we have the full card. I'm not going to talk about everyone in depth because we would genuinely be here for hours, and that would not be enjoyable for anyone, I don't feel, but I don't know. I certainly can't listen to myself for hours. I've been editing my videos, and they're face videos as well, and I detest it. So here we can see with a full, we've got the cottage, because that's what they called it, off into the distance. So they're about to venture into the cottage and experience Heartwood at its core for the first time, which I really like. It's giving me the vibes. Oh, I can't help myself as well. I want to see it next to Thistledown really quickly. Thistledown is also borderless. The only thing that I will note is that the font always changes from deck to deck, and it's not a huge deal because in some senses it makes it stand out from each other, but it's just something of note. Oh, all those two look good together, especially because the colours are they, oh, lovely. I love how Adam seems to have this thing about what's in focus is almost like the detail is finer, and you've got the black lines or darker lines to kind of bring stuff out. And then in the backgrounds, sort of, if you look at here in 𝗵𝘁𝗍 as well, the further the background goes, the softer it gets, the more, I want to say watercolour, hopefully I'm not wrong, it gets softer, and it really reminds me of, you know, like when you're taking a photo on a phone and you're focused in on a particular object and it sort of just, yeah, it softens out the distance. I like it. It gives me a little bit more sort of perspective, I guess. Jodie's saying it looks good for her, which is great because she's on her PC. Is it okay for everyone else? I mean, there's a bunch of you here, so if it's not close enough for your eyes, it's quite a detailed deck, so I'm quite happy to zoom in, folks. But speak now. You don't have to forever hold your peace if you don't, but I don't want to zoom in once I'm too far in. Oh, maybe we should have them up so we can still enjoy the other picture. But I am a fan of the backs. I mean, a border on the back is not my favourite thing, but I really am not worried about it either way. It looks good on your phone. Okay, awesome. We'll just stay like this for now then. So here we've got the Magician. This is giving me Magician vibes, but in the... One of my brothers, the youngest one, has been really getting into, for years actually, but it's really going strong now. They're absolutely amazing at magic tricks and card stuff in particular. They're really into playing cards, and they can do all sorts of sleight of hand and stuff. It's really fantastic. It's really impressive. And this kind of gives me like show magician vibes in the coloration. I don't know if anyone else is getting that, but that kind of, I know it's faded to match the tone of the deck, but it's still that kind of ruby red curtains. It's really giving me that for some reason. It's beautiful. And I suppose if we think about it, the White Rabbit is inherently, for better or worse, because I dread to think of some of the older tricks, if honest, and I definitely know that birds were harmed in the making of some tricks years ago, unfortunately. But the rabbit out of the hat, you know, is very traditionally associated with a magician. So I like that. It's a fun play on the magician. And the more I read... You know what's a great book that has some tarot history in it, but interwoven in like a really accessible, fluid, enjoyable read? I've been reading Radical Tarot by 𝗤𝗵 Claire Burgess, and it's absolutely fucking fantastic. Like, honestly, cannot recommend it more. It's one of my favourite tarot books, currently anyway. I've not finished it, but... And... speaking about different things like how the Fool has changed, sometimes they're a jester, sometimes they're something else, and there's sort of nuances to that, and it's similar with the Magician, I feel, as well. So then we move into the High Priestess, a little burb. I like the mixture, and I feel like they hit a sweet spot for me as well, where the animals are slightly anthropomorphized in that they have crowns sometimes, or they'll be holding like a sword, but it doesn't go too far in a direction that tends not to be my style. I won't say never, because there was like a Cat Barber Studios tarot that I could never get that was... They were dressed in peoply clothes and I really liked it, but generally speaking, it's not my thing. And then here we can see they're on top of pomegranates. They've got the crescent moon, they've got the stars. These are usually on the crown. There's a lot of Rider-Waite-Smith symbolism pulled into this. And so far we've seen the mouse in both of them. Yes, I knew they were deer. Look. I'm such a child. I've always been able to embrace that side of myself anyway, but I feel like I'm having, I want to say a renaissance. It might not be the correct word, but I'm going to use it anyway with that at the moment. I don't always refer to all of it as inner child work for various reasons, but I suppose in essence a lot of it has been. And yeah, just the joy it's bringing me after burnout and 12 months that have been just some of the most challenging months of my adult existence. I'm enjoying it. These windows with the swirls give me nostalgia from places that we would have like rented when I was younger as well. So that's really cool. And in the Empress, we've also got a rabbit up here, which I wonder if that's referencing another deck. Yeah, it's not referencing, there's not two of these. I'm really curious. This is not going to be quick, by the way, folks. I'm just going to put that out there now. Like, I'm going to try and not take forever, especially because of battery on the phone. But also, I don't want to rush myself. I did come on to have fun. This will be rewatchable, and generally my experience is you can at least put me on 1.5 speed and I still sound normal. So if you want to come back and do that, that's totally fine too. I'm just really curious. Sorry, I'm going through this really, really quickly because I can't remember what the Empress is in the 𝗳𝗃𝗃. And honestly, if you are at all into sound ASMR, don't they make a great noise? Or is it just me? I'm really particular about sounds as well, so... There is a small possibility I've gone past... Aha! Aha! To be fair, that border's a little off-centre, but maybe it's something about it not having sharp edges. I don't know. Let's face it, it's not the end of the world anyway. This is just me being a weird... But I do feel like that's a cool... It's sort of like it harkened back to this one. I don't know. That's what it made me think of. Isn't it a lovely shuffle sound? And yes, Disney's Robin Hood, though, that is my favourite anthropomorphised animals ever. And because I don't know if it'll ever happen, I am going to share here, which is extremely sappy, but I don't care. There's a song in that where Robin Hood gives Maid Marian a little flower ring by the lake, and I believe it's called Love Goes On. It's an incredibly old song. It's so old that it's quite hard to get the full copy of it anywhere. And if and when my partner and I ever get married, and if that ever happens to be in front of anyone and in a way where there would be any music at all, because there are many ways to do that and there might not be music, I would like that song playing, because I just fell for that when I was a child, and it's probably one of the nicest nostalgic romantic things that I've held in my strange little heart. Keeping their other decks near. This will happen again, spoiler alert. Oh, keep their other decks near. This will happen again. Oh, okay. Spoilers are not a bad thing. So here we've got the Ram. I mean, I won't do it with all of them, and I'm not sure the Ram was an Emperor in this one, but we've got the Ram in the background, so maybe they were. And then we've got the wolf coming down the stairs, which gives a really interesting idea to the... oh, we've got some new lurkers. Hello, Julie. Welcome. Now, when I see your name, I just want to talk about dolls, but I won't. Hey, Lennox. You only missed a few cards, actually, so don't worry, and some preamble. You're fine. This gives a really interesting layer to the Emperor, because there is that fierce element of the wolf, but this wolf looks so soft in the way that they're sort of coming down the stairs to meet the mouse. I don't know, but for me this gives me really soft vibes, and I feel like that's perhaps a really not always the way that the Emperor shows up, but I suppose if we really want to hone into a part of the Emperor that both takes up space and still manages to keep something soft about them, there's something powerful to sort of be had in that. Yes, dolls, Julie. All of the dolls. We've got these glorious windows again with a Hierophant. And here, what I'm going to guess is a moth, just based on the lighting and the fact that it seems dusky to me. And they've got a little key, which is just grand, fantastic. I love that. Isn't Adam good at setting the mood and like the lighting play and all of that stuff? I really admire it. I was going to say respect, but I think admire is a better term. Now, I knew this for these ones. So this is one of two lovers cards, and this depiction here is actually the original lovers depiction. And then you've got this. So we saw the death card with the vial, and I have to say I'm very of the mind where whatever, because they sort of match for me, the lovers and the devil, for obvious reasons, whatever one I pick of one, I will choose the complementary one to keep in the deck. It's a really hard call because I feel like visually this one perhaps stays with the infusion of being inside the house a little more. But there's something really, really precious about this one in particular. And like I said, there's that, okay, it's not mirroring so much as it is their reflection, but that's what I was talking about earlier, this kind of seeing yourself. And now we have it in the Lovers card, not the Strength card, not the Hanged one. So it's really interesting to see how the idea of a mirror image or a reflection shows up in different archetypes in particular. And I love talking about stuff like that because I'm a tarot nerd. Well, I don't know what one to pick. I might leave them out. I won't leave both of them in. And yes, for sure, look at me trying to decide where to put them. I will probably alternate them until perhaps I get really sort of attached to one in particular. We've got the Chariot, which is the beautiful horse. Oh, and look at his patterning. I'd seen a picture of this and I hadn't actually noticed its patches originally. And we've got some very autumnal leaves in the front, but it might not necessarily be autumn. It might just be that these are leaves that have been in and around this paddock, or what feels like a paddock or a shed or something like that, for ages. And I love the details in this. Maybe I should bring it closer. That would be more helpful, right? Off in the distance here, we see the edges of horseshoes as well. I love it. Ooh, look at the Strength card. Now, I'm going to assume that this is a grass snake based on the fact that as UK creators, they tend towards UK fauna and flora, I believe. And so I'm going to go grass snake, although it's not the first thing that comes to mind. But my snaky knowledge isn't as good as some of my other sort of reptilian. But this is glorious. I'm not going to lie. That snake, it looks hungry to me still. And then we've got the Hermit. Oh, look, with the little buttons. It reminds me of the sticker. Where's our sticker? The big one. Can I find it quick enough? Of course I can't. Just trying to be professional when I'm not. Here we go. I don't know why, but it's just the kind of vibes. There's the candlelight. There's the little letter. It's cute. It did look vipery based on the eyes. I thought that. But we only have like a handful of snakes over here, right? And it didn't register for me. Do you remember what species we've got over here, Jodie? Because my brain's kind of giving out on me today. I've been writing about animals, but not that animal, for hours this morning. And so my brain's really only giving me like grass snake, and then we only have one sort of like potentially, I'm not even sure how dangerous the venom is nowadays, but we have the adder, obviously. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of our main sort of natives. Smooth. There's only a handful of them though, right? I have written about this before, but you know. Oh, we're 40 minutes in, I should go quicker. Okay, here we've got the Wheel of Fortune, and you see we do have these pictures in the background, and we've seen the pictures a few times. We've got a picture in the Empress, we've got pictures in the Wheel of Fortune. So then I'm torn because it brings the Lovers pictures. That's very complimentary, but also this is more of like a flavour change up, I find. Decisions. It's the fun thing about decisions though, right? It's like totally a first world problem. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like even an adder bite, most of the time most people would be fine, unless you're just unfortunate. Here we've got the Justice card. Owl's a really interesting one for Justice, especially given that, I mean, we have seen some other animals like the snakes who eat mice, but like owls and mice have a very interesting, it's the justice of the ecosystem playing out. Dandelion and burdock. This was one of my absolute favourites when I was sort of just coming into like pre-teens and into early teens. This is the Hanged Mouse. I like it. It's a very gentle name change, very easy to sort of follow along with. And death. This is a really beautiful representation of death. Sorry folks if your heart is feeling particularly heavy in seeing this today, but we can see the little rib cage coming through and then the roses growing outside of it. Also, as far as I remember, there is an association between white roses in particular. And then we've got Temperance. And the water coming through because it is an abandoned cottage, so there's lots of tears and holes and things, so the mixing of elements is definitely going on. And here engraved into the wood we've got these gorgeous 2 cups as sort of a nod to the traditional temperance in the Rider-Waite-Smith. And then we get into our other 2 choices. I really love the perspective of this one, not that I don't like the Lovers, but the Devil with them sort of coming out of these frames is really, really cool. Also, I've just realised here we've got, I'm going to assume butterflies and then moths based on just some sort of like folkloric associations, and also like daytime versus nighttime. Not all moths fit the nighttime thing, but predominantly they tend to be like dusk and nighttime dwellers, right? They're really beautiful. So that's the one. And then this one we had seen on the sticker or one of the printouts. You found an owl pellet in your garden the other week. Ah, awesome. Dissect it, see if it's got a tiny little skull in it or something. That's amazing. I've never actually done that. I've never found an owl pellet ever, but I've always wanted to do it. You can, from a few foragers that I follow, they actually collect them up. They don't know if there's anything in them, obviously, aside from the few that sometimes you can actually see, but you can buy them in bulk and then basically have a little like treasure hunt in the owl poo, which I love. Looking at these 2, I still can't decide. I would love you. I know I've already got a vote up, but that was just a silly one that I set before. What pairings do you like? Because we're not going on a mix and match. This is not what's happening. I can't do it. I'm sorry. So based on the premise that it either has to be these 2 or these 2, which Lovers and Devil would you pick? At least first. Because I appreciate some people are going to say, well, I would try both. This Devil card, far more, it almost has a bit of a death vibe to it as well, to be honest. Far more, what's the word? Brutal in some senses than the vibes of that one. You're scared to do it because you don't want to touch the pellet, or because of the process and potentially breaking anything in there, because I believe there's some really good resources online if you need help scouting through the owl pellet. Mermaid's Dream Tarot, hello. You went with the foxes on both because the poisoned mouse made you too sad. Yes, I understand that. I fully get it. And I do think it's interesting because there's an element of like human harm to that I'm not as enamored by, but then I realise that sometimes human harm befalls wildlife and animals, even when it's not intentioned. You know, you leave something out in a shed and then a mouse gets into it. So it's an interesting concept in terms of the deck. I think these two just remind me of the house more, which is something that I am noticing I'm feeling a bit more drawn to, just because everything else takes place inside the house, and these could be in the house, but to me they feel a little bit out of the setting. They're stunning, and the flowers and that, like, it feels like it could be in the grounds, but just in terms of predominantly, oh okay, they do go outside from the star onwards. So, but I don't know, it doesn't, I feel like this sort of follows the story a tiny bit more, but I'm not sold. Jodie, I will try and find some owl pellet info for you at some point so that you don't damage it, because I understand, but there could be a little gem inside there. I mean, if you like owl poo, it's a gem anyway, but I don't think that's probably the case. We've got the tower, and it's really accentuating the broken windows and the wind coming through and the door not being closed, and then the lightning over the trees. So whole mood. And we've got the nighttime vibe, which, like I said, Adam seems to set the scene really well with what time of day it is, what the weather's like, where the lighting's coming from. Here they find a little fallen star, so to speak. Look at the glass around it. It's really cute. I am probably going to say cute a lot, so sorry, I guess. The moon. And this little oldie woldy shoe. Look, this shoe is loved. So loved. I get some really, like, I suppose, visceral sensations when I look at certain things, and I can almost imagine the texture and the smell of the leather of the boot, which is strange, but it's true. And then we've got the sun, which we've got a lovely nod to ladybirds here, or ladybugs for people who definitely in America. I can't remember what countries use it and don't. Again, something I've researched, but since it was not necessary for me to keep it in my brain. But they have, for those who don't know, they're considered lucky, and in terms of sort of folklore and that kind of belief and superstition, that sort of holds true across a lot of countries and cultures, whereas you find some, I'm not saying it's all of them, but it's a lot, whereas with some other animals, there's really big variations across the board. But yeah, the ladybug it seems to be quite a standardized agreement, which is really interesting if you're a nerd like me. Then we've got judgment, so we come back to this idea, but we've got an actual mirror here, and it's greyed out, and they really look like they are taking a moment to go within. It's like the final judgment. But what's interesting here is it's of self, as opposed to sort of giving us that outward religious kind of overtone that the Rider-Waite-Smith has. It's the World card. Check me out. I'm happy with that initial guess, because I know I went off into, oh, I've dropped something, 1 second. I know I second guessed myself and then said, what did I say? The Hermit. I can't remember what else, but I'm happy with that. So we're moving into the courts. No, we're not. And it's not the courts that I meant, it's the suits. We're moving into, what, some extras. I forgot that these were in here. I just want to see how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5. They do love putting in some extra cards, which thank you. Always cool. It really depends on what the kind of card is as to whether I keep them in. If I was reading for someone else with this deck, I might be more inclined to take it out. But if I was reading for myself, I would probably leave it in. So we've got unease, and didn't I see some of these? Were these not the prints? Yeah. Do you remember I got some of these? We've got some discussions about at least 2 or 3 of them. So we've got unease, discovery. That does still give me star vibes as well as discovery vibes, although it's encapsulated, so it's almost like you've found your navigational point, or you've found your hope, but now you need to like foster it and gain access to it, which is interesting. I love tend. I'm a big snail girly. I owned giant African land snails, for anyone who doesn't know, and yes, they're legal to own over here. Whereas I believe in most, if not all of America, they're not. But I'm a big snail fan of the garden snailies as well. So this is really beautiful. And you know, you get that kind of mystical layer to this, because of course you wouldn't put I hope you wouldn't put a candle on a snail. So you get that kind of, mystical is not the word I wanted, sort of like whimsical fantasy layer to this as well. And then we've got surprise. So they've gotten into their discovery, and now they're surprising a little burb. And then home, which is lovely. It looks like a little doll's house. I'm sure that's what it is. I've decided that's what it is anyway. And then we move into the cups. So we've got a little cup engraved on the door. I like that. It's very in keeping. It's not too, and we've got the sort of element of water at the forefront, which I'll be curious to see if all the aces do that or they don't. Have fun with farm life, Lennox. I love that. I know you're gonna live it for real. I hope that the goats greet you with a friendly good morning, my dear, and we'll catch up later anyway. So we move into the 2 of Cups, and I don't think for the minors, I don't think for the minors that predominantly we see other characters. We don't sort of see the mouse manoeuvring through them in the same way as the majors. So here we've got these 2 birds having a blast. Again, bit of water element in here. And we've got raspberries, which... luscious. Raspberries alone give me 2 of Cups vibes, and I literally couldn't tell you why, other than like energetically it makes sense to me. It's clearly my relationship with raspberries. And then we follow the birds into the 3, and they are sharing in this glorious bird bath. We can see the cups here, which is really cute. I suppose, I'm not sure if they go for like representing the cups everywhere or not, but here you could say we've got sort of 2 receptacles. We've got the cylinder as one, and then this little chipped cup as the other, which gives me like a loved old cup vibe as well, and Beauty and the Beast, because I was a Disney kid. For better or for worse, that's my era. So I do love when I see animals doing things like this as well. Like, it's no secret, I'm a big animal deck person or a pippish deck person. I don't hate people decks. I just get so distracted by seeing people who might remind me of someone familiar. And then it sort of, it kind of, in my brain, it interferes sometimes. It's not like all of the time or always, but I use my people decks sparingly. And the more they look like, I guess, quote unquote, real people, as opposed to being more fantastical in some way, I am really then particular about when and how I use them. And I've come to the conclusion that, one, animals were a huge deal for me when I was younger, especially due to childhood trauma, like a significant amount. And that's very common for kids who experience trauma or just individuals who might struggle with like communication, other people on the spectrum. Like it happens for a lot of us, and sometimes for those like crossed over reasons, and animals become like a bit more of a fixture from a young age. Also they're easier to be in relationship with, which pros and cons. You know, an animal doesn't turn around and tell you to piss off verbally, but you know, they could show it with behavior. So anyway, you've got that, but also I like work with people for a living, and whilst it might be on a far smaller scale than I used to, just the faces and the amount of people from all walks of life and all places, like globally and stuff, I just have so many people sort of ingrained into this part of my sort of subconscious that, yeah, sometimes people-y decks get a little bit much for me. You're all right, you're officially, you stand behind your yes answer in the poll, Marlena. I am glad to hear it. You don't have any decks by these creators. UK decks can be pricey for me. This one, like, more than the others. I wholeheartedly understand that, and we've got the Four of Cups, so I'm going to carry on moving whilst I talk to Marlena, but here's really interesting. We see the wolf again, which I'm not sure it's meant to sort of like hearken to the Emperor in particular, but at the same time, it is interesting because the Emperor is a 4, and then we see them again in another 4. I've often, I've said to a few friends, like, if they wanted to buy the deck and send it to me, I would send it to them, but I don't think it makes it any cheaper from what we worked out, because the postage is the postage, and I don't think that you get customs and stuff from us, right? Or do you? Because I'm not really in the loop with that part. Here we've got 5 of Cups. One thing really interesting about this deck, which you do see in the other one, the 𝗤𝗄𝗃, but not in the minors, just in the majors, we're seeing different animals this time throughout the minors. And I feel like these creators are good for creating decks where you don't have to know anything about the animal to be able to read the card. It's not relying on what I often refer to as animal gnosis. You call it animal messengers, the spirit of an animal, you know, that behavioural, educational, folkloric infusion, magical infusion, spirit infusion, because they're really trying to depict a whole scene, and what we're seeing is an animal instead of a person in that kind of storytelling capacity. It's not that the rabbit here or here is, because again I can't always work it out with the artwork, although they're both stunning. I could work it out fine with a picture. It's just sometimes for me the artistic license, it throws me a little bit. Yeah, with these decks, you don't need to know anything about rabbit's behaviour, or like some of the common links you might have to rabbit. Often people think of fertility. That's not relevant here. We're seeing the colours, we're seeing the weather, the body language, the shadow, the cups, the 3 broken, the 2 there, very traditional Rider-Waite-Smith stuff. So do you see what I mean about you not having to like rely on animal knowledge in that capacity? And so it's a very different flavour of animal deck to some others, and that is something that I've talked about in, actually it's probably one of my more popular videos. It's like finding the right animal tarot deck for you, which I did a tarot version and an oracle version. But there are, as someone who has a plethora of animal decks, and unapologetically, and I can stop but won't stop, although there's way more than what I have, I am still quite fussy about them. I really noticed the different styles and types, and for some other people, if you tend to have like more people-y decks, that might not be something that you're familiar with. Anyway, we move on to the 6 here, and we've got these glorious little frogs. We've got the mushrooms, we've got the ladybirds again. So I do feel like there are still layers of that animal stuff if you want it, but again, it doesn't feel necessary. And here we've got the cups are again carved. So it's an interesting mix, because here we go for like a more traditional, the cups are actually there. And then here we've gone for more of like, you need to know a bit more about the Six of Cups perhaps, or perhaps you would get some of that from this. And then it's just reminding you that there's 6. But I feel like, I do feel like there's a difference between these two depictions in terms of how they express themselves, if that makes sense to anyone. I'm not sure, but again, that's not really a difference that is going to impact me at the place that I am with my sort of my reading practice and stuff, but it's just something that I noticed. Here we've got the Seven of Cups. And look at them with the fox, and they're looking at, what would we call this? Maybe a larder? I don't know. I feel like that's one of the correct words. And we're looking at all these options, like if you're going to grab something and you've only got one chance, which often with foxes, you know, it's one of those, one of the reasons that they're considered crafty is because they can get about, and they've got that wonderful crossover between sort of canine with like feline adaptions, and they're good at getting in and out. But of course, once they've caused a stir, then they might not be able to come back. I mean, this is abandoned, so they might be okay, but I love the idea of like, will they take maybe the burdock, or we've got some root vegetables here, it looks like, maybe some grains, some bread. I'm loving it. I feel like they're in cahoots, which is a lovely representation of fox. Thank you, Three of Trees, for always doing fox justice and not just portraying one side of it only. Eight of Cups. We move back to a little bit more of a traditional depiction here. Also, I should have counted. Do we have 7 cups? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. Am I missing something? That's sometimes curious to me. Again, it's not a massive issue for me personally, but it's like, I wouldn't go as far as, is discrepancy the right word? There's something about the style changeover that, again, it's just, when I'm actually reading with it, it's not going to notice enough for me personally. And sometimes those things do, it really just depends. But I very much get the sense it won't be a thing for me. But as I look at it in this very like focused on several cards at a time, that's when I'm noticing, which is why I'm sort of speaking to it. I do like this though, the idea again that the mouse is sort of leaving behind something and they're moving towards the moon. Again, gives me that traditional 𝗫𝗫𝗁𝗫 vibe, but in the right setting for this particular creation. So unless I'm missing stuff, we don't always see the amount of, oh, the cups are here in this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nice, clever. So I feel like I've missed something on this one. It's more just me being frustrated with myself in case someone watches it back and says to me, there are 7, they're here. But I can't see them. Anyway, I love this for the 9. What are these called? It's not a gramophone, is it? I can't remember what they're called. I really, really can't remember. But they do give me that very sort of luxe, self-indulgence, but in the good way. You know, we're not really talking about this in a negative. The build of emotion, the coming to, not to be confused with other sort of celebratory cards, but there is something about the 9 of Cups and that emotional fullness that, especially for me, like music really brings me to, and the idea of dancing and things like that. I think it's like 7 vessels, so it includes the cheese plate. Okay, hello 𝗪𝗁 Tarot, by the way. I watched your video this morning. the collection one with the, so by the way, check out 𝗵𝗿 Tarot and all the other people that I've said hello to, but I'm terrible. Sometimes I use people's names, sometimes I use their YouTube titles. So yeah, they recently just brought out a collection video on that tag that I was talking about earlier, and it was decks paired with their indie eyeshadow palettes and perfumes, and it was just the most exquisite watch. Like, if you want something sumptuous and far shorter than this video, check it out. Project Refined Live, hello my lovely, welcome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're right. Thank you, 𝗵𝗿 Tarot or Imogen. You should use your name. One day I'm going to use someone's name though and get it wrong, and it genuinely makes me anxious because my memory is terrible. Right, so those are our 7 choices. Thank you, Imogen. Big credit to you. So we've got what I'm going to just call grains, although now I'm like, maybe it's berries, but either way. Then the cheese is the second, the bottle as the third. We've got different, like a veg as the 4th and 5th, and then what looks like different breads as the 6th and the 7th. And I feel sated now. And this card I have seen because when I was listening to Kelly Bear's early walkthrough of this, I did look at a couple of the cards just, you know, to make sure that some of them were vibing with me, because I honestly normally am very particular and look at all the cards for ages before I bring in any decks. It's just safer that way. But this was a belated birthday present, although the pre-order was way before and it's arrived after, but early actually, and earlier than expected, I mean. And I saw this card and I freaking love ducklings and ducks, and just I like them all, but I have a special affinity for the female mallards because mating season is brutal, and that's all I'm going to say on the matter without distressing anyone. But and also the whole duckling thing is quite a harrowing experience anyway. So I feel like this 10 of Cups just gives me, like, it's the nicest side of the duck and the ducklings. And if you're curious as to how I know that this is a mama duck, I'm not suggesting that daddy ducks don't hang out with the ducklings. It's simply because they have, and there's a term for it which I've forgotten, but some animals have different colours between their genders, and this is what a female mallard looks like. So yeah, and little duckling babies, and then we've got that in the background. And I love the idea that there's not 2 adult ducks here as well, so it's not doing exactly the whole, like, is it 2.5 family, is that the saying? I always forget it, but it's not really doing that. And then we've got the 10 cups in the background. So here we've got the page, and the fish is a very common thing to see in the cup in this particular card, so that's really cool. And then we've got a frog looking in at them, hopefully working out how to get them out of the cup and into a bigger water situation. I can't help but my logic has to be thrown out of the door with fantastical stuff because it ruins things otherwise. This gourd is fantastic for the Knight of Cups. It's a whole vibe, and look, this knight genuinely has its own little helm here. Adorable. And then here we've got the Queen. Absolutely love. And when we've not gone for an animal pairing, doesn't bother me at all. I'm just always curious to look because I'm nosy. So our Queen of Cups is our deer, so our doe. And again, I know it's a doe because it's not got the antlers. And then for our king, we've got the heron, which from an animal gnosis perspective, I really enjoy the heron for both the King of Swords or the King of Cups for pulling upon different facets of either their behaviour or some of how we've sort of conceptualised it through the human lens. So yeah, freaking love this. And I have various associations in my practice that sort of extends into one of the deities that I work with, and some sort of messenger stuff with them. And actually a friend and I were talking about it recently because she also has a similar thing with them and one of hers, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, then we move into the Ace of Pentacles. So far both the aces have got that door thing, which I really like, and different door, different engraving, beautiful roses growing up this one. I'm loving these old brass door knocker type knobs. I can't think of another word. Two of Pentacles, yes, thank you for giving me Snow again. Look at this, it gives sort of like a greenhouse vibe, and the Pentacles are the two itty bitty snails. And yes, snails love climbing over each other. Even when I had my giant African land snails, of which I had 3, they were always climbing over each other. So, and they were like at full size is what I should have added to that. Here we go into the 3 of Pentacles. And I like this idea of the spiders working together. The 3 pentacles are in the web. So it's almost like the mouse is an overseer of this. That's how I would view it. Like I'm more drawn into the meaning via this part of the card, if that makes sense. Because interestingly, it's actually one of those more sort of stark, duskier depictions otherwise. Like colour referencing. And then here we've got the 4. So this frog has actually found coins up in the very full rain gutters of the roof, which is abandoned. So I wouldn't be surprised if ours looked like this, to be honest. And it's not abandoned, so this tracks. It tracks. Although if anyone's into vulture culture, although it's very unfortunate, and obviously we would rather the animals were alive and breathing and embracing and enjoying their life. When you clean the rain gutters, occasionally you will find something in them, so heads up. If you're that way inclined, check them before you get someone else to do it, or you're paying someone to do it if it's been too long and you don't do them regularly. So here we've got the 5 of Pentacles, and I feel like it really draws on that. And the reason I'm referencing 𝗪𝗿𝗺𝗁 so much is because this, as far as I've always understood Stephanie's tarot creations, they are 𝗪𝗿𝗺 infused for the most part, and if not entirely. So we've got the church, we've got the window, the 2 people outside. This is really interesting. We're not actually having to see the fox bandaged in this instance, but we see the tree. So someone really tried to keep this beautiful old, and it's got a lot of character, hasn't it? I love it when the branches start to curl and take shape like that. And someone's loved it enough to try and hold it together. And then, of course, it's the little fox outside, sort of in the elements, which is a really interesting invitation, because we could consider, on one hand, the fox has more of a capacity and a familiarity of dealing with this. And on the other hand, we can really go to how tough it is for them and just wildlife as a whole. So I like that you can go both ways with that 5. It's an interesting layer. This is matte cardstock, by the by, just because I've been going for ages, and if anyone gets bored and leaves, they might want to know that before they leave. It has like a funny papery texture, but doesn't feel too much like that as an actual cardstock. It's more just the outer texture. 6 of Pentacles, there they are, in the flowers that have grown through the drain. I love that. It adds a very different vibe to the 6 of Pentacles, of which I enjoy, because sometimes the 6 of Pentacles, although this could be useful in a reading, so I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but the 𝗪𝗿𝗺 6 of Pentacles, I believe, is the card that I often call I call it the Robin Hood card, but it's not. What I meant by that is overall and I'm pretty sure, in fact, let's get it up on my phone so I can explain to you what I mean. And I can't remember you know, the tax collector in Robin Hood, damn it, what's his name? Like Disney Robin Hood, mind you. Just to be clear, 6 of Pentacles. I really wish I could remember the name. I really think you can go both ways with the 6 of Pentacles. So let me get my details out of the way. In one instance, is this Robin Hood? And have they taken from the rich to give to the poor? On the other hand, is it the tax collector, Sheriff of Nottingham? Thank you. Marlena. And it's almost like a false balance of monetary stuff. Now, okay, the Sheriff of Nottingham doesn't actually give anyone any cash. They are only seen taking it. But for me, there does, especially because of the way that they're dressed, there's this kind of unbalance. I can't think of the good words that I want, so please forgive me because this is terribly worded. But essentially that sort of power distribution is not in any way equal in the 6. And so the 6, in terms of numerology and the harmony, it gives me more Robin Hood. But in this depiction, and also that kind of, you know how people will give to charity, and this is not anyone in particular, sometimes we share that to give awareness, and sometimes we share because people have donated to us to give to a charity. But you know, sometimes you'll get like someone who'll do it once in a blue moon, tell everyone, just to sort of feel good, and that's really their only intention behind it. It feels like that to me sometimes. So I like that this is got a different flavour, is what I'm saying. Thank you, Marlena, I appreciate it. I feel like a rambling nightmare sometimes, but we'll roll with it. You're all very understanding, and anyone who's not has probably left. Hi Matt, welcome. How are you? It's going okay, although we've been on for 76 minutes. 60 to 70 to 80 to 90. Okay, not an hour and a half yet, but an hour and 15-ish. And I'm just over halfway through it. Said I wasn't going to talk about all the cards, but actually I will say this because it's been something that a friend and I, or a couple of friends and I, have been talking about recently. And the interesting thing is there's been a lot of discussion over the years of like unboxing and walkthroughs, and whether a review is just like far more valuable. And I, you know, more and more as time goes on, I'm very keen to own my opinion and still share it, but try and not yuck other people's yums and poo-poo their way of doing things. But also, the more time goes on, the more that I see like the merit in so many things and different approaches. And a friend of mine was saying, you know, well, they're not reviews, so it's not the same. And no, in a review, obviously hopefully there's that time and connection and bonding and putting something into practice. Yeah, I can't help myself. But with a walkthrough or an unboxing like this, there's still that really exquisite experiential layer. And in my humble opinion, a lot comes through in someone's discussion and exploration, if that's what they're doing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with someone just going, pretty card, yay, love this deck. Not at all. But there really is like an absolute spectrum of how any of these things exist. And I really feel like, as a community who seeks to perhaps have some sort of engagement with spirituality, some sort of discussion of like spectrums and nuances and diversity, then really, instead of bringing these like extreme concepts to the forefront, we could really see things and explore them for what they are, or just simply own the fact that they're not for us and that we don't enjoy them. But it's not inherently wrong or lacking in something just because it's not for us, you know. So there are some, I get a very different vibe from unboxings than I would from a review. But sometimes the same sort of thought and inspiration and discovery goes into both. They're just different. I think there's a space for both. 𝗤𝗍𝗄𝗃 Tarot said something in a video about all the different flavours of what you can get here, and it's amazing to be able to go here and there across the channels. I agree, Marlena, for sure. And we'll move on the cards now, but this Seven of Pentacles is very cute, by the way. Oh no, I have something to say about this as well, but yes, I agree. Thank you for sharing that. I feel quite passionately in myself about that, and from like really trying to push myself to consider these things, not just expecting everyone else to. The Seven of Pentacles in the 𝗳𝗁𝗃 𝗀𝗃 and this deck, they don't give me Seven of Pentacles. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. Oh, hallelujah, it's on the top. How'd you like those apples? Remember, if I'm saying something's not for me or I'm mildly critiquing it, I'm not saying that anything about the creator or anything of the sort, but for me, these very sleepy depictions don't give me the activity and the build-up and the physical material manifestation of the Seven of Pentacles. And I was really hoping to see something a bit different in this one. And it is different because you've got the clothing pegs. And so we know that someone's actively at some point been hanging the clothes up. Also my favourite kind of pegs. Nostalgia. But energetically, because the animals tend to be one of the main figures, I just feel like this Seven of Pentacles expressively is off for me. I can read it fine because I know what I conceive the Seven of Pentacles to be, but as someone who likes to infuse the artwork into my readings, and I pick them very choicefully sometimes because of that, yeah, it's not my favourite card. We move on to the 8. They have been stamping away. I love these. I also really enjoy seeing red squirrels because whilst they're native to the UK, predominantly due to the steep decline in the population, predominantly they seem to be in and around Scotland. There are a few places sort of up north in England that, as far as I'm aware, have them, but like the populations, I'm sure I've forgotten somewhere as well, but the populations are very diminished. So the only time I have seen a red squirrel in life was when I saw one at a wildlife rescue that couldn't be released back into the wild, and that was actually the day before my birthday, so that was this year. Yeah. So next we've got the 9 of Pentacles, and here we've got, I love that, they're all stashed up with their coins, which is, I like it more from a numerological standpoint actually, where it's like the building of them. The mouse is back, they're chilling out with this hair. This is definitely hair for me. And then we've got the little snout, we've got some of the butterflies. It does harken back to that, the lushness of the 9 of Pentacles, but also has a, I've always said it's interesting with the 9, you know, if we think numerologically, the 9 is like the peak just before the 10. And then I suppose some of this is very much to do with like the 𝗪𝗿𝗺𝗃 in particular, but I see the more the solitude of the 9, and then in the 10, in the 𝗪𝗿𝗺𝗃 at least, there's sort of more people around. I often think about that as that not always such a completely solitary thing, but more of like an implicit shift environmentally, physically, and then in the 10 it sort of gets explicitly expressed. I don't know, there's just something about the build between the two, so I like that kind of lush solitude that's kept in the 9. I don't know if that makes sense. And then the 10, we come back to this picture idea, so again I think it's looking stronger for these two, if I'm honest. and we've got the 10 of Pentacles, this lovely little reading table. It's like finished. It makes me think of someone finishing their book, you know, like, wouldn't that be that? This is how I feel every time I finish a piece of Patreon work. not to bang on about my creations, but the love, sweat, sometimes tears but not blood that goes into some of the stuff I do, that once you've done a piece of writing or a video or something, it might do your work justice, but it never shows the receipts, I guess, of how much research and time and other stuff has gone into it. But I do often feel like this, so I'm really relating to this card on that basis. And I mean, who doesn't enjoy a tiny murder of crows? Adorable. Hey Stephanie, welcome. Yes, Sapling Tarot is correct. We are admiring your deck. It literally came through the door today, and I gave it about half an hour before I decided I'm going to unbox it live. I've got zero chill. Yes, Marlena, I definitely get that with that pence in particular. It's an interesting crossover. It is. You're taking a little break. Are you taking a break just in general, or are you taking a break from creating this? Because I'm not going to put you on the spot, don't worry, Stephanie, but I have to say, you missed my excitement for this, and having a spider tarot deck as someone who is absolutely just in love with all walks of animals, including insects, including spiders, I cannot say how excited I am, and also just deadly curious about whether it's going to be in colour or black and white, of which I have just excitement either way. But yes, I am so up for a spider deck. Like, I don't have all of yours, meaning that I don't have the dragon one yet, because I really try and pace myself, but I have the 𝗬𝗁𝗃𝗁, I have the thistledown, and I have this, and I was thinking I probably should slow down, and then I saw the tarot for the spider, and I was like, okay. We'll be adding that on to what I imagine will be maybe next year or the year after. I mean, no pressure, I am patient. Anyway, back to this. I got distracted. Here we've got the Page of Pentacles, and look, this is another one I did see on 𝗪𝗿𝗄𝗄. Like I said, I was only paying attention to a few cards because I didn't want to spoil it for myself. But I remember seeing this very old loved piggy bank, and the fact that the piggy bank is a pig, yes. It's a great one for the Pentacles as well, because whilst I don't always associate it with monetary and financial stuff solely, although it is inherently a part of that, because the material realm is of course a part of that, and then we've got the physical layers, and I often talk about those just because perhaps they don't get talked about as much. I like the concept of like what we try and put in to this is, I'm going to go on a tangent now, but I have very strong feelings about when people solely, I suppose, in wellness and spiritual communities get stuck into the idea of everything that we put into our body will secure us like good health or won't. It is a big factor, of course. Like, it doesn't mean don't look after yourself, and it doesn't mean like eat excessive sugar and don't drink enough water. Like, they all are, of course, valuable things. It's just not a promise. It's not a promise, as I know from what happened with my health, at the peak of my health, might I add, and that's not to add stress. And so the reason that I love this is because this old broken piggy bank, I'm having some projections, some good transference with it. I'm feeling kind of seen, I guess. It still functions. What's put into it is still can be really credible and still matters. It's not going to fix this, but it's still important. Does that make sense? I appreciate that's a very personalised conception for this, but it was fun. I'm having a moment with it. You have a few ideas for the spider deck. It's going to be black and white for sure. Yes. But I'm also toying with the idea of a colourable spider deck as another whole thing. Don't hold me to it, but okay, we will not hold you to it. It's fine. You do what you want to do, what you've got to do. I haven't had a black and white deck like this. I have wanted a few and they've not been quite right for me, and I've got some other black and white ones, but they're not in this style. So an Adam black and white, like Imogen, stop. Why am I crying at a deck unboxing? I also feel very seen and held by the piggy bank. Yeah, you saying that has got my eyes teared up. We're bringing it today. We're bringing it. I can tell that I'm talking about emotive stuff because suddenly I'm having one of my hormonal meets emotional hot sweats, which is not fun to imagine, but it's fine because you can't see me. But I can feel it. So the Knight of Pentacles, we get into the strategic, and look, we've got knights. Why am I pointing at the wrong thing for the knight? We've got the Knight of the chessboard. The Snow is the driver. Love it, love it, love it. It's in the style of 𝗬𝘁𝘁𝗄𝗧, which is one of mine and Adam's favourite artists. 𝗁𝘁𝘁𝗄𝗧 is, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, is also the reason I got into tarot in the first place. That's interesting. We're getting scoop, I feel. I mean, other people might know this already, but I did not. So thank you for indulging me. My cat's crying at me through the door like, it's dinner time, mummy. Either her dad will have to feed her or she'll have to be mildly patient. Also, I might add, for anyone who's feeling sad that my cat is not getting like fed immediately at her request, that 4 p.m. for a cat to eat, a cat who has lunch as well, is absolutely outrageous, but story for another time perhaps. We've got the Queen of Wands here. Beautiful. As I've said before, I love how the foxes are uplifted in this, and you can see the pentacle here. It's really, really soft. And is it a statue? We've got like these mossy bits growing around it, so I think it is. Or maybe they're just that one with nature, that they're like dressed in it. Either way, I'm here for it. Very delicate as well, which I do feel fox behaviour has been so chronically misunderstood and mislabelled over the years that even though we have a lot more scientific observation now, a lot of people haven't really caught up with it. So whilst foxes are definitely crafty and cunning in terms of how we view them and their capabilities, there's something really soft about them in my experience. So, and that's sort of first-hand observations. We've got a starling for the king. Beautifully noisy, bold birds that I could just tell you all the stories, and I'm not going to. She's a beautiful statue sprung to life. I love that. I haven't read the book yet because I didn't want to spoiler it for myself. Have a lovely day continuing on your projects, and you're very welcome. Thank you for an epic package and quality as always, and yeah, thank you for joining. We don't have that very often. Very cool when one of the creators pops in. So here we've got the King of Pentacles, and they've got their crown and all of that good stuff. I was like trying to nose what was going on at the doorbell, but I've got at the door, but I've got no idea. I lost my train of thought, sorry. But starlings are, we have them in some of the most built up areas, and they are so wonderfully, yeah, bold, sassy, whatever word you want to sort of connect them to. They're really vocal, they make some great noises, and they are, they sort of remind me of robins in the way that they're more happy to be familiar with humans, whereas some other birds naturally and probably sensibly keep a distance. Then we're moving into the swords, and we've got again the door with the carving. Yes, thank you for the continuity. And then, wow, we've got the spider for the 2. Oh. And so one of their options is they can like sort of skedaddle off this way, which looks far safer in my humble opinion, especially this lovely plush bit. And then here we've got sort of the roots of bramble, which, if you're not familiar with bramble, oh, it's impressive. It's pretty invasive as well, but not necessarily bad. For pros and cons to everything, right? It will strangle the life out of other plants, but also brambles come with blackberries and they're great for birds and people, and yeah, great for protection as well if you are a fellow witchy worker. But so they've got options. I'm really curious, who was at the door? There's somebody at the door. I shouldn't chant on this. We've got the 3 here, and you can see the little bird's wing has been wrapped. What I like about this is that we're not seeing the heart with the 3 swords in it. And whilst it does still bring the 𝗪𝗿𝗁𝗀 nuance in, which obviously it's going to, it's a 𝗪𝗿𝗁𝗀 deck, I'm not seeing the utter repetition of that image, of which is, I call it tarot fatigue. It's like tarot fatigue for me. So I love this change up in particular. Also the leaves hanging as if they're like a mobile, or, you know, like the mobiles you put over cribs, or some kind of like naturalistic decoration. It's really interesting. And they're heart-shaped leaves, which sort of ties in that 𝗪𝗿𝗁𝗀 element again. Look, it's a kitty. I have definitely not seen this one before. I'm here for it. I haven't been doing that thing where I've been playing like spot the swords in all of them, but I have just noticed in this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, very mentally restful, very peaceful. I like the idea of the candles and really like simplifying and drawing back and coming into a more of a balanced mental state, as opposed to having like so many thoughts at once and being so busy with the mind. That's how I would take that sort of metaphorically. 5 we've got here. What have we got? Oh, it works. It works. Although again, when you're trying to express something that's more in the mental and the communicative realms, expressing it sort of physically is always a bit of a challenge, but it definitely it gives me an overall 5 vibe, like off the bat. And also they tend to colour, at least with the Okash and Thorn as well, the 5s tend to stick to a certain type of colour and environment, sort of weather type thing, to help with that overall energy, which is something I really enjoy and I've noticed throughout the decks. Some of them I would sit with longer to really like flesh out what I'm seeing of the meaning, because like I said, I have the meaning that I know, that I'm really familiar with, all of the ways that I work, the different ways that I integrate the layers of the tarot in the way that I use them. But then pulling out the art, some of these cards you'll notice it's been very quick for me, and others it's more of like a sitting process, which is something you don't obviously get to see in a live. 6 of Swords, we've got that they're reflecting, and so whatever this is, it's making them look like swords, which is clever. We've got more of these pictures. We've got the water coming through again, which we do see the boat in the 6 of Swords, and this concept of like they're moving, so it's like mentally, I see it often as like gaining some insight and trying to sort of move towards that as well. And I got distracted. I've got a tiny little fruit fly in here. Hello. I don't want to eat you. It definitely tried to fly in my mouth. We've got the 7 here, and so this crafty little one it almost looks like they're holding it, but then actually I think it's like pierced through the picture. And you've got the mouse here sort of looking down at the empty one. And we've got the 8. Can you see that they're pulling in on those colours again, as it really tries to sort of set the energetic tone for the card? So we've got these, I love that they're hanging down like little wooden or cardboard clouds and stuff, because it's inside. And what's great about this is they're surrounded by them, and also these, but they've got scissors around their neck. So instead of the blindfold, we've got, which I feel like in that instance, there's that reminder that we can sort of pull the blindfold off and just move out of the mindset that we're in. This works with that in a slightly different way. It's like you can cut the threads and sort of, I see cutting the threads as like when we try and help clients notice the thought without attaching to it, or really punishing themselves for a thought as well, because our minds can have so many thoughts, and really the concept of having control fully over that is unrealistic, but not sort of jumping on the bus of a thought and sort of riding with it. So you're cutting the thread to it, so to speak, because you're cutting that energetic tie, and then you don't continue to communicate it to yourself or sort of act upon it with someone else. And then we've got the 9 with this beautiful owl, but this very like war-torn chair, which is really interesting. Perhaps someone was a sword thrower, which reminds me of the magician, which because of the whimsical nature of this house, a magician could totally have lived there. Just saying. And then the 10, grief, sorrow, despair. But what I like about this 10 is you could, if you're more numerological and you really want to lean into that layer, or just another layer of tarot systems and schools of thought that don't really align with the Риder-Waite-Smith, because we've got the flowers and what we could conceive as a sunrise, not necessarily a sunset, or it could be a sun setting on a great day, but this idea of like completion and transformation and stuff is there. And it's like the titles of the book don't really grab attention, I don't feel, in such a pressing way. And that's just, I know people have feelings about the 3 of Swords and the 10 of Swords in particular. I have a preference towards numerological and elemental reading, but when I'm reading with a Rider-Waite-Smith deck that is very visually Rider-Waite-Smith, then I will tend towards the Rider-Waite-Smith meaning, and try and incorporate fluidly throughout the whole deck more of a Rider-Waite-Smith system, with perhaps infusions of the other things to honour the cards and the art and what I'm seeing, because that feels more cohesive for me. Everyone can do what they want, that's just a for me thing. We've got the page, and they've got these, again, these little strings with the stars on, super whimsical, and you can see the sword there as well. Whereas the knight this time, oh, clever, look. So the Knight of Swords with their books, because it's like, if you think about the academic and the intellectual layer of the swords as well, I do like books being included for this one. Oak, ash and thorn, smoke, ash and embers. That looks like it says Thistledown. And then that almost looks like it's going to say the muse, the wild. This one's got like a symbol on it. That's very cool. I like that. We've got the Queen of Swords. I'm digging the snake for the Queen. I like it. Especially because I feel like the Queen of Swords is often mildly misunderstood, because I still feel like some of those facets that people talk about are of course a part of her, but the idea that she's just sort of cold just because she has this really keen way of being able to communicate and be directive, I think speaks a lot about sort of like patriarchal influences of the time perhaps. And it's the same way that people might misinterpret snakes, because a lot of people are fearful of them, and naturally we develop over time certain responses to certain animals that we may have needed to be more fearful of, or we've sort of been encouraged to via religious stuff or cultural stuff or TV and media, you know. So yeah, I like to bring all of those layers, especially because there is a nourishing, nurturing element for me in all of the queens. Not that the kings don't have that as well. Their expression of it feels different as well. You know, I wouldn't say the queens are fully passive either, but it does feel like there's something more like sort of inward and then outward in terms of energy for me between the two. And then we've got the king, who is absolutely glorious. I love birds of prey. And look, the butterflies there are carved into the wood. So they're still there, but there's a different vibe to their presence. And then finally, we've got the wands. Again, we've got the doorway. We've got a different type of handle here, but I'm loving it. And it has, again, it's very in keeping with, for me, English cottage vibes, at least of old. We've got the two, and they're looking at the map with their little compass, the map of the cottage. That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And again, colour and lighting even, that's what I mean. So clever. That's no problem, Jodie. Have a lovely day, my dear, and thank you for hanging out. I'm not surprised if people have gone. I knew this was going to end up being long. I don't know why I try and do anything other than. Three of Wands. And I like the difference between these two a lot. I won't repeat myself more than to say a lot of people over the years have told me that they struggle with the differentiation between the 2 and 3 of Wands sometimes, either the depictions or maybe if they're written about in the 𝗪𝗿𝗺𝗂 but in like just a very short and concise way. And some decks do a great job of really showing the differentiation between like the conception, energy build of the two, and then the actionable, and again like more of an outward expression. So if we go implicit, explicit, sort of, I'm not saying that's always the case, but to give like a more of a quick fire general vibe, especially with a freeze, you're coming into that like conception of I don't know how to explain it, like the initial burst. I do feel like the wands are always a really interesting one for creators as well, because it's the most there's something about expressing energy separate from expressing physicality and the material realm. It's an interesting one, so I'm enjoying this depiction of it, as far as, you know, it is Rider-Waite-Smith as well, but it's doing it beautifully for these two. And love a badger. This is, yes, a European badger for those familiar with like American badgers and would be like, huh? The 4 of Wands, we have mice. Oh, look at them. They're having a blast. Celebration cake. And I very much imagine they would eat this despite the mushrooms growing on it, because they're mice. This is a good time for mice. And so you've got the ones there, by the by. They're like twigs, which I enjoy. I'd have loved to have seen the swords as something else, but then that seems really contradictory, because the cups were cups, and obviously I suppose animals use bowls sometimes if they find them, but perhaps it's more to do with the fact that swords remind me of something more more aggressive than I would associate the actual suit with. And so there's something about, in any deck, even the Rider-Waite-Smith, when I think about the swords versus the other 3 inclusions, there's something more neutral about the other 3 items in particular. Arguably, swords, you can go across a spectrum with like protection versus like, and then defense versus attack, and sort of violence and stuff. But I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else. Back from goat chores and on to other chores while you listen. Pets, I tell you. Yes, they take time, don't they? I am coming towards the end, which is probably good because I've sat longer than my back was happy to. But welcome back. It's good to see that a bunch of you are still here as well. Thank you. 5 of Wands, which is a really interesting concept because not only are these two having a bit of a battle here, but also they're trapped for the time being, which in this close proximity would probably eventually make you want to throttle the other person you are with, even if you love them dearly. And trust me, I speak as someone who actually spends a lot of time with my partner, and we're pretty good at being in close proximity, but like imagine being just stuck in this. So there's some interesting layers to that, like what you could get into the discussion. What is it about this situation that's caused this sense of conflict? Like, is there something about it circumstantially that if it weren't that way, that this wouldn't have happened? It's an interesting inquiry to add. We've got the 6 and our lovely little hedgehog and these beautiful butterflies, which are really up close, so we get some fun detailing here as well. And the wands are gathered together and they've got a little ribbon around them, and you've got the trophy, so there's a lot of that sort of triumphant celebratory sense in this. And I love a little hedge pig, I adore them. For the 7 of Wands, I like this concept of like the playing of shadows. Is it bad? Is it good? There's almost like a wariness here, being a bit sort of like the rabbit's up and they're alert and their senses are heightened, but there's not necessarily something to protect themselves from. And so the invitation to reflect upon that is there's time to reflect upon that, you know? Whereas the 8 tends to be then like the movement is back. I see 7s as very reflective personally though. And we've got the fish because this part, which gives me basement vibes, has flooded. And so the fishies have taken over, but they're like, yep, we're going off onto new ventures. Off to give a message to a human, maybe a human, I don't know. Oh, we've got a bat. Yee! I love bats. Bless them, look. They're a bit torn. They're in need of some healing. What's really interesting about this piece, and I'm curious if this is an artistic choice, like consciously, which I imagine it would be, is that this isn't plugged in, but it's still lit. So I'm super curious, but unfortunately for everyone, I didn't think ahead. Didn't get the PDF up. Maybe I'll look at it at the end really quickly. And the 10 of Wands, we've got here a little squirrel. They look like a squirrel babe actually, which is really sweet. And so you could go, again, this is one of those ones that doesn't, I feel like, fully press the 𝗪𝗿𝗁𝗍 on you. And like I said, I want to use the 𝗪𝗿𝗁𝗍 depictions, but also it's like some of them feel all complementary of each other. Like the 5s feel like they very much all have a 5 vibe, and then you get to the 10s and it's like 2 10s are really up and 2 10s are sort of really down. Obviously you don't have to read them like that, but in terms of their like upright 𝗪𝗿𝗁𝗍 traditional meanings, it sort of gives you that vibe. It's not neutral in any capacity, I don't feel. And so I feel like these 10s have given a bit more room to those. But then whether you could say that about the more uplifting ones, like I didn't necessarily pay attention to that. So perhaps that's something I could look at. We've got another beautiful doe, but actually the doe in the other card, in one of the other courts, I think it was it the Queen of Pentacles, looks like more of an adult. Whereas this, I'm getting very sort of like older fawn vibes from this Page of Wands, which again, look, I love it. Oh. And these, yes, I love them. I'm gonna say weasel, or Do you know what? I was watching a video the other day about pine martens and weasels and stoats and all of that grouping of families. And yes, again, it's not my strong suit, but usually because when I come into contact with them, I'm usually just moving them from one space into another space, and they are so rapid as well. But there's this really cool nature guy who has some like live feeds sometimes of some of them, and it's really quite fantastic. Here we've got the Queen of Wands, and look, we've got the lion here, by the way, we've got the lizard here, their little helm, and then finally the King of Wands, who is in this beautiful picture, and the lizard's up here. I think that I'm going to go for, and I didn't think that this was going to be the case. I really am surprised, genuinely, because these are beautiful. These are so exquisite. But I just don't feel like, as I wandered through the deck as a whole, but also these do fit, but definitely like the majors, and because they weren't outside for too long, and if I was following the order of the majors, they'd sort of gone into the house and then hadn't come outside until sort of, I think around, was it the Star card, there or thereabouts, whereas the Lovers and the Devil were before. I think I'm going to try these two first, and we'll see how I get on. Let's see very, very quickly if I can't, then don't worry about it, because this is long. No one probably wants to hang around for any longer. But 3 trees, heart. I'm just looking on my phone to see if I can find, when I ordered it, that's when I got the digital guidebook. Here it is. Let's have a look what it said. No, I don't want to unsubscribe, rude. Click on the image below and it will take you to, that's very easy. So here we go. This is what it looks like when you're just using it on your phone. Oh, isn't that lovely? Is it going to take me a while to get to where I want to get though? And remind myself, what was I looking for? Was I looking for, I've forgotten. See, this is the problem with my fog at the moment, to be perfectly honest. It's been really, really bad. I think I was looking to see if they mention the animal. The guidebook is in the order that the cards come, by the by. So if you're curious. This is a stoat. Do you know what? I nearly said stoat based on the colouring, and then I discounted myself because I was trying to remember the difference between the ears on a stoat and a weasel, and it went to pot. It went to pot. Oh, we've got some comments. I think I agree. I thought I'd choose the bottles too, but I think I might just put them up as art. Yes, right. Hi, Mara. Welcome, welcome. The back card was gorgeous, wasn't it? I really do think that I'm with you, Imogen. I really, really thought that it was going to be the other two cards, but it's just, these two just make so much more sense to me as a whole. The other ones, like I say, very beautiful. I feel like I was going to look up something else, but I've really, really wholeheartedly forgotten what it was. Unless it was that, and I'm just having a moment. By the way, if you're wanting a taster of the guidebook, it's very concise, but it does tell me the animals, at least on this one, which I'm happy about. So it says, artwork description. A stoat, our knight, strikes a stance on the mossy steps of the cottage, stalking a salamander below. Their armour, a golden red plumed helmet, hangs from a vine hook above, and a wand leans against the wall beside them. card meaning. Our daring knight is ready for adventure, and it doesn't take much to spur them on. If they appear, creative pursuits will flourish. Now might be the time to take some bold risks. So very, you were thinking to check the meaning of the back card. Was it the back card? Let's just read the meaning of the back card anyway then. Oh, I was. Because of the light. Thank you. Oh. I've been very peaceful about this, but actually, if I'm honest, the memory thing has been really upsetting me behind the scenes, but it is what it is, and I know I'm not alone, and fellow spoonies get it, so it just panics me a little bit. It's not fun. So here it says, an antique-styled gooseneck lamp sits on a desk in front of a slightly ajar arched window. 9 wands surround the base, scattered haphazardly among dried leaves. A wearied bat, looking a little worse for wear, with its outstretched, tattered wing, hangs from the arm of the light. The lamp is lit, yet it's clearly unplugged. So maybe this is a little message of like hope on top of the, you know, like the push in the 9. It's like, don't give up, because somehow magic happens. Oh, I like that. I'm so happy that it was on purpose as well. And I don't, like, that's not me assuming that Stephanie had forgotten or Adam or anything like that. It's just, I really like that it was spoken to explicitly. And it says, even though you bear the scars of your challenges from your journey, the 9 of Wands encourages you to stay resilient. Keep going and don't lose hope. The finish line is within reach if you can summon the little bit of strength needed to complete the task. That's right, Bat. We're going to help you repair, because I don't like seeing them wounded. I'm so glad that my calendar didn't say anything then, because I just realised I had my phone in thingy still. Oh, dangerous business, for God's sake. You're the same. It is really frightening, isn't it? It's thank you, Mara, though, for reminding me what I was actually looking for. It's, yeah, the memory stuff. It's scary business, unfortunately. I have to say, I didn't think that I wouldn't like the artwork, but I am so pleasantly pleased with how much I got from the cards. I mean, it's been an hour, that's not correct. It's been 121 minutes. I am rubbish at maths. I'm not working out how long that is. We are the little bats and we keep going. We are, it's true. Literally, and not that anyone cares, but just to be really transparent, I would have loved a different visual for not the animal, just I would like something different to have been going on in the 7 of Pentacles for the reasons that I discussed. I think that's the one card that really sort of stands out to me in terms of it's just, it doesn't get me to the meaning as quickly. There are a few other cards that I'll sit with, but that was really the one that I'm so heavy-handed. I need to be careful because I nearly ripped the front of that card away. So do be careful when you shuffle. I'm not saying be extra precious, but when that card hit the other one, I really nearly did have a problem, but I've managed to flatten it down straight away. No, I'll have to adjust my shuffling. Hi, I'm going to try and read your name, 𝗤𝗵𝘁𝗄𝗃. I'm hoping that I have not butchered that. I am very sorry if I have, but thank you for stepping out of the lurker shadows, and thank you for the love. Spoonies unite. I'm sad that we have so many in our community, but I always feel incredibly seen by fellow spoonies in particular, because I think as much as everyone can have compassion for something, it's really hard to know the full extent until you unfortunately experience it. So yeah, I am looking forward to getting into this deck properly. I am not going to lie, I'm a little bit anxious after that card with my shuffle, but I do tend to struggle with shuffling in terms of I get sore hands quite quickly, so I think I am just a little heavy-handed. But yeah, other than the Seven of Pentacles, literally the only other thing is I probably wouldn't have added a border onto the backs, just because I wouldn't, but honestly, it's like it doesn't bother me. So, first card from the deck, what did we get? One of my favourites. You're in Norwich and you received your Heartwood today as well. See, snap. I mean, I'm not in Norwich, but I'm in the UK. So, yes, mine came through today as well. I hope that you enjoy it. We got the Two of Pentacles. I love that. See, I see that as me and this deck coming together in a beautiful way. Because of course this is a tool, so it's like that material extension of my practice and some of the more what's the opposite of tangible? I'm just going to say intangible and energetic and spiritual facets being brought into something very physical as a coming together and an expression and an expansion of that. So I really like that. That feels like a good starting card. So yes, yes, yes. Mara says lots of details in each card. You could spend hours to check them all. A deck for sitting down, pause and explore like you would explore an old abandoned cottage in the woods. Yes, they've definitely really brought their intention forward in this deck. And my 𝗬𝗁𝗃 is absolutely beloved because it gives me nostalgia in terms of the, what do you call it? The farthing wood, which was something that I grew up on. The artwork isn't the same, obviously, but it gives me that vibes, those vibes. Ugh, I've been Englishing for too long now. It really does give me that, and I still really, really love it. But I dare say, if I really had to speak to the cardstock, slightly different between these two, by the by, but it's not. This is the same as the thistledown. And I don't know if it's just the finish on top, because they use the same printer, so they might say to me, well, we don't understand why, but I'm telling you the cardstock is different because it feels different. Like the texture, when I run my fingers over it, feels different, but it feels like the same core, if that makes sense. And this one is slightly thicker, I want to say, than the others, but I don't know. I feel like this one has taken a little bit more of a battering from me and had no issues with the sides, whereas I will be tentative with this one, because that really did. I'd be really upset if I had dinged a card on the first try, and it does seem to be a little bit more, but hardy cardstock, I'm just speaking to more of like if you catch an edge and stuff, it's fine. Things chip and age eventually anyway. I'm just going to age it faster. But yeah, what I was going to say is I actually do feel the progression between these two a lot. Are they thicker though? Because let's add the 2 extras in, because that one's got extras. It's really weird because they're the same height. There's something that feels different about these, but I don't know. Maybe Stephanie can tell us, or maybe it's literally just the paper texture. Anyway, I feel like when I looked at this one and I looked at the dragons one, the dragons one's absolutely beautiful, and don't get me wrong, like I said, if like my family bought it for me or something randomly, would fully enjoy it. But like, I'm not necessarily out there prioritizing it because I've got a couple anyway. And this, the 𝗬𝗁𝗃 was definitely my favorite of the two. because had I really loved the dragons more, then I probably would have got that as well. But I decided to wait and see what else they were birthing. I feel like this one is more similar to the dragons, not the same, and of course it's got dragons in it, but there's something very different, more evolved about this one in particular. So, and I'm wondering if you're seeing that there's more detailing, there's more story, and it's not just that there's a few more items. I feel like the story has evolved a little bit more, if that makes sense. So I'm really appreciative of that, and it makes these two decks feel incredibly different to me, actually. Aside from the Seven of Pentacles, they feel a bit similar, but for the most part these feel very different, and I did wonder if one was going to sort of battle with the other, and we shall see. But for the time being, I'm feeling very happy with both. They don't feel like two of the same, you know. So let's grab your last comments and then let you go, because this is super long. But I will say before I grab your comments, thank you for hanging out with me. Anyone who is here live, you brought me deep joy, because it's always nice to have people to hang out with on a live. Makes you feel less like a Wally talking to a camera on your own, which I do enough when I record and I'm not live. But also thank you to people who watch this back and get to the end as well. Let's have a look. Sapling Tarot, Farthing Wood core memory unlocked. Yes, you're welcome. Although, just remember how harrowing it was as well. So if you're feeling tearful like we were earlier, pick your times to engage with it wisely. Perhaps just the theme song otherwise for the time being. Because, you know, a lot of animals don't make it. And it was a different kind of kids show to what is going on nowadays, which we said when we explored this deck, so I'm repeating myself, but not everyone saw that video. You're joining my Patreon coven in October, so it's about time you said hello. That's very exciting. I look forward to getting to know you more. Do let me know if you're a Discord person as well, because you can jump in there. But what else is, I mean, you get that on any tier from initiation up, but also what else would you need to know is the coven. You also get my spread book if you don't have that already, so there's that. So yeah, if anyone ever joins that and the initial email doesn't like enlighten you to all of the things that you want to know about navigating it, or you need help or anything, do please reach out, because I like to think I'm approachable and helpful with these things. The finish could have gone on thicker than others. Oh, okay, Lennox is saying because even if everything is same with a production order, sometimes the finish comes out different. That's interesting then. Perhaps there was something slightly different about how this one went on with my first deck, for sure. Which, because like I said, it feels similar, but I'm telling you, like, the actual layering feels different. I'm glad that you enjoyed this. Thank you to those saying thank you. 90s British TV is all harrowing. Ha ha. It's why we are the way we are. Isn't that true? Preach. I definitely feel that, and like childhood gave me a very interesting sense of humour, and it's perhaps a little dark for people's tastes, but fortunately for people, I don't bring too much of the deep layers of my humour, other than the more acceptable parts, to YouTube. Thank you so much for this. It was lovely to hang out with you all. Yes, thank you everyone. Well, in that case, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to finish this. I'm going to post it. We're going to see if anyone ever watches it other than you guys. That's totally okay. Like I said, when you join, if you join, which no pressure at all, and people can come and go as they please. Finances are difficult. Patreons are not imperative to people's life experience, so I totally get it. But if and when, chuck me a DM or an email if you need any help, and I can get you sorted on the things and help you navigate it, because once you get used to navigating Patreon, it's really easy, but it's just one of those things, if you're not familiar with it, or Discord or Instagram or any of the things, it's just, you know, I think some people who have grew up on these things assume it's second nature, and it's not. Like myself, even on Threads, was amusing for the first few weeks. So have a lovely day, everyone. Thanks again for hanging out, and I will see you guys hopefully a little bit more sooner than it has been. Bye for now, and take care.